but okay. How am I gonna set this thing up? Should have probably thought about it. Alrighty. Too close. So just be careful with it over there so it doesn't fall off like the GoPro. Alright, time for some budding action.
You still want this thing on?
Just put it to the side, don't worry about it for right now. There, let's see, turn it off. GoPro off. Alright. Alright, so we got this whole shower ready to go. We got chicken wire, we waterproofed it, wrapped around the window, made it real nice and tight. There's not a stitch of water will go through this thing. And obviously, we already put the float strips on the side. These are perfectly flat, perfectly level, I would say. We use a nail gun for that kind of stuff, just to get it nice and perfect. And now, we're going to start out with some flow. Is it the good stuff?
Yeah, it is.
Give me a flat trowel. So, start out with the back pull. And when it comes to float, you kind of have to move. It's like grouting. The faster this part is done, the more time you have on piling. And obviously, having a window complicates things because you just have to kind of work around it, but it's not too bad. So first things first, you want to get through and you want to get that first coat of adhesion, all right? You want to do basically like a scratch coat. And that way, afterwards, you can layer on, right? You can layer on so your mud doesn't fall off. I hope you guys are having a good day out there. I know it's a little bit of rain, but you know, a little bit of work brightens up any day. Make sure you go through. Don't miss anything. Very important is the sealing. You gotta scratch coat it really well, or it wants to peel back and fold back after you load it up with some mud. I'll tell you what. That's a good save, right? Load it up. Now, up for the float strips. So you want to put about 1.5 inches of mud on your side. You know, this is a little bit of a messy job, but there's nothing that can compare to concrete. Alright, that side is ready. Now you can see the mud. This is a little too wet, you know, but it's going to be okay. Especially for today, as a wet day, you don't want anything this wet, but we'll make it work. Okay, now it's float strip time. These are about a little less than 1/4 inch thick and about 1.5 inches wide to 1.25 inches wide. Make sure you pre-wet them if you want the mud to come off of them afterwards. Alright. Now, very carefully when you bang these hole strips in. You don't want the mud to just slide off from all the vibration. And you don't want your wall to be too thick, so make sure you get them up in there. So when it comes to the thickness of the wall, you want about 1/2 inch or less. You know, some areas obviously that's not going to work out because the wall is crooked. We got to level it out, so obviously it's thicker sometimes. Sometimes way thicker. Okay. Alright. Perfectly plumb. Let's see what we've got. Okay. Now, we use that L edge, is what we call it. Okay, you can see that it looks like an L. And obviously we have different lengths for different sides of the wall. And this is what we use to, you know, basically to get the excess mud off the wall. And now you see why we use these float strips. The float strips are perfectly plumb, and as long as you follow them, your wall is going to be absolute perfection. Put this thing back there. Alright. I need on the wall, and we'll just continue to build it out. Well, give me a bucket so I can throw mine in. Be very careful around the window because the mud just doesn't want to stay on, especially on thin parts like that. You know, the cool thing about floating is how flat the walls are. I don't use any kind of spacer leveling kit or anything like that. You can just basically stick the tile straight onto the wall. You got perfect coverage, and the tile is absolutely perfect. No lippage, nothing. So, people don't understand how well this works. You know, the old timers knew a thing or two about getting things done. Now, I've been using this same system for the last 21 years. That's when I learned it about 21 years ago. And, you know, obviously I learned up to the master setter and stuff like that, and we just kept on going. It always worked. I understand it's a little bit of a learning curve, but after you get that done, it's perfect. I need some more wood. All right. Another thing you want to do is you want to make sure the spacing from the window to the edge of your mud is the same. Alright, so we got 5 7/8, 5 7/8. Absolutely perfection. That way you don't have to sit there making taper cuts all day. You can just make one size cut and it fits. As long as the window is put in sub 1 decent. Move to the side. So go back, fill up anything that's missing. You want to go through, make sure your float strips are still perfectly plumb. And they are absolutely gorgeous. Wow. Alright, now since we're done on the back wall and around the window, after the mud stiffens up a little bit, that's when I go through and knock that down, make sure it's perfectly straight. I just put a level onto the mud, right, like this. And I just take off the excess. Make sure I do equal on both sides. Now, what we're going to do is we're going to start on the sidewall. Same process, and you saw how quickly this back wall went. You know, it takes about an hour, hour and a half to get the chicken wire and the paper up. And then, you know, floating usually takes another hour, hour and a half. Alright, scratch coat done. Now we'll go through and build it for the float strip. Exactly the same process. Now, I just take the flow strip from this side. I understand sometimes it's better to leave it so that way you hit it with the edge, but it's okay. I only got a few of them, so you gotta improvise. We have the framing square. Okay. Now we go through and take some of it off. One thing is what we got to do is we got to put a little bit more mud on here to make sure we're perfectly square before continuing. Done. Show me that square. Almost. We're about a 16th off. Which is not bad at all. Alright. Let's get rid of some of this mud. This one. See how quickly this is going? And that's why I love this method. It's quicker than any Schluter, any Hardy board, any method that's out there. You know? And it's gonna last. As I say, look at Rome. A lot of it's still standing. more here. Wall number 2 done. Make sure we're 100% plumb. Very important. You don't want to sit here taper cut everything. Check the square. Do we still have a lot of mud?
2 more.
Square. Perfect. You know, after a while of doing this thing, you can basically see what's square and what's plumb. And if it's questionable, check it because it's probably messed up. Done. Take the table and all the hot stuff I still need. Okay. All right, now it's time for the fine tune. So I gotta clean up where the flow strips didn't reach, because obviously I have a set of flow strips for everything, and they're not perfect. They're a couple of inches off because I cannot just make new flow strips for every cup. Make sure we gotta get the tub legs. This you can. Alright, the next big process is filling in these tracks that we have from the flow strips, and the way I do that is use the hook and a trowel again. Make sure it's nice and nice and liquid. You don't want it too stiff. You want it to be a little bit more watered down than the walls. Straighten it out like this and just load up your knife, as Bob Rossi says. Load it up. And then you take off the excess, load up the next one. Side's all done. Now we're on to this side. Now we take off these are not the float strips, we call them stops. They're a little thicker and thinner. So same thing, you want to make sure you cut it from the mud, because if you just start taking it off, it's going to pull the mud with it. Make you a huge mess and ruin your work. Get a nail puller. Little curl bar action, never hurt nobody. Hello? Is something urgent? Something urgent? Let me call you right back, okay? I'm almost done. I'm live streaming a video. That's fine. My brother-in-law called me on the live stream. Clean this up a bit. All right, now what we got to do is basically just clean this thing up. We got to wait for another 20-25 minutes. Can basically, just knock down all the corners and all the little edges with a flat trowel, we call it, or a wood float. Not a flat trowel, but a wood float. Sorry about that. A wood float. We basically go through and knock everything down. Also, these corners get fixed up with that. Right now, it looks a little crude, but it's perfectly flat. That's all you need. And after we do that, we would enter probably 10. That's how I prefer to do it because I don't like, I prefer to close it up the same day. So obviously we'll kind of today. I'll put pictures on my Instagram if you want to check that out. And another good thing about that is the mud takes a little bit longer to dry when it's under the tile. That way it cures correctly, okay? Because if I just leave it open like this, sometimes you can see cracks and other things in the mud just because it's drying too quick. Just like when you're working with concrete, it's basically the same thing. It is concrete. So that's it. That's how you float a shower. A couple of hours or so, and you're absolutely done. I'll show you. So now we go through, obviously clean this thing up as well. Clean the tub out, tool the hood, tool the walls, and we're good to go to set. Hey guys, if you like this video, please comment down below. I'll make some more if you guys like this stuff. And if you have any questions, comment as well. Thank you so much for watching it, you guys. Have a wonderful day and have a beautiful day. All right, we'll see you later.